Hey everyone, we're back on Black Ops 7 Zombies today for a little bit of a different style of video. I'm going to be going over my recommended augment builds. And quick disclaimer, if you guys have different suggestions or ways that you like to build perks, ammo mods, and field upgrades, that's great. Do what you enjoy. This is just me giving what I think are pretty good builds. So without further ado, today's topic, augments. My camera is going to block the description a little bit, but we can just go into each augment individually. And we might as well just start it up with perks. Stamina up. There are a decent amount of cool builds that you can do. Certain maps, I think Free Faller is pretty good, but what I like to run is Stalker. Um, when I do have to train, I do like to be able to move faster while you're in ADS, because you're able to keep better accuracy, but you can move faster and get hit less. Pretty simple. With the minor perks, I like running footwork because that movement speed boost that you get when you're moving side to side, I'm not sure if it's working properly when moving backwards. I can't really tell based off of screen movement. It's just nice to be able to move faster. I know that people really like to use hot foot. I don't pick it, but that is also a really good minor augment. And on top of that, quarterback. Not anything, magical, but being able to throw and use equipment while sprinting, it's pretty useful when you're in a sticky situation. So that's stamina. A lot of people have been loving equivalent exchange this year since they buffed it. I understand that. I still run Dying Wish. It's just better for how I play the game, but they are both really good options. Dying Wish is just it's more streamlined. I don't mind buying Quick Revive whenever it activates, but that's just a preference thing at the end of the day. Minor augments, they are pretty much all really good. If you are going to higher rounds, I can definitely see why people would love to use the fourth self-revive kit, being able to craft that. I get it. But for me, I use Swift Recovery because that speed boost when you revive an ally, it's really nice. I wish it lasted a little bit longer, like maybe a second or two, but it's really nice. And on top of that, being able to heal yourself because you're sticking your neck out to save someone whenever you revive is great. So that's why I use Karmic Return. Moving on to Juggernog. I like to use reactive armor. I understand that Turtle Shell is also very good in a lot of people's eyes. I just like the fact that this stuns zombies if they break any armor plates, and it's a pretty big radius around you too, so that's why I enjoy that one. Minor augments, I use hardened plates because you're able to absorb more damage, and on top of that, durable plates is really good because your armor lasts longer. Now, I would say if Shake It Off activated more, I might consider this one, but as of right now, I think based off of a Donuts video, I don't remember what the exact percentage was, but it's very low. It activates maybe, I want to say like maybe he said 5 or 10% of the time, so in its current state, not worth it, but it could be good if Treyarch eventually buffs it. We'll have to see though. There are a lot of ways to build this perk. The way that I use it, I just don't take it off of these augments. This is for like actively using a melee weapon. So I like to use Espresso. I would love it if I could also use Vampiric Extraction because of that health that you get for hitting melee strikes, but it is what it is. I like being able to use my weapon faster, so I use that major perk. Minor perk, stick and move is really nice because it helps you not get hit as much because your backpedal speed is increased a lot. I mean a lot whenever you hit an enemy with a melee weapon. And then on top of that, I use Barista Brawl because if you have this perk and you're going for a melee dedicated, game, it gives you even more essence for getting those melee kills. So it's just a nice bonus. Now, I will say an alternative way to build this would probably be I'm not sure what you would do with major augments. Maybe Mocha Mall if you're using a weapon like a regular bullet weapon, but then you also want to have like a backup knife or something. Probably Mocha Mall, and then mugging is pretty good. I've seen because it gives you a pretty decent amount of ammo back, but I have not tested that myself. I have seen it in other people's, augment recommendation videos that it is pretty sweet though. One of my favorite perks, I know it's not anything flashy, but just having pretty much all actions be sped up, it's really nice. I love using classic formula because the base improvement of this perk just doesn't cut it. And I think with classic formula, it's like a 50% reduction to how, long it takes to reload a weapon. So that's why I like using that one. Quick swap and fast picture. I know they're not anything crazy, but they're really just like quality of life buffs is the way that I look at them. It's even if you're not using, you know, a bunch of weapons, it's still just nice to be able to swap the stuff faster. And on top of that, fast picture, nothing crazy, but being able to throw and deploy stuff at a quicker rate it's nice. It's nice to have. Now, I will say if you love spinning the mystery box, obviously Speedy Roulette is going to be really good for you. And I wish that the fourth minor perk worked more because it does sound pretty neat, but it doesn't really activate enough. Just like what was it, the other one? Shake It Off or Juggernog. It's kind of in the same boat. Where if it did activate at a higher rate, I would consider it, but for the time being, it just doesn't do enough right. Vulture's Aid. Now, this is another interesting one because there's definitely a lot of good augments, both major and minor. What I like to do is use Smell of Death because there are certain situations where I don't have an Aether Shroud charged up and maybe I'm out of decoys as well. Just getting that lucky, smoke cloud that you can hide in for a few seconds, calm down and figure out, okay, what do I need to do next? It's really nice to have. I will say that the field upgrade charge cloud as well is really nice. I use that a lot in BO6 when this first came out, but they're both really good. And obviously, if you want to use wonder weapons, maybe you go with parting gift. And a lot of people like Armormatic because it takes the tedious, part of plating up out of the equation. I don't mind the armor plating system, but for people that hate it, that would probably be the major perk for you. Now, for minor perks, I use carry on luggage because the amount of salvage you get for critical kills is actually really good. I think I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's a boost worth using it for. And on top of that, picky eater because I like using equipment. I like using decoys. I think I run Simtexes most of the time. So if I need one of those in a pinch, it's just nice to have more of them. I would say I really my problem with Vulture Aid in its entirety is that Condor's Reach isn't just part of the base perk. I wish that what they would do is have Condor's Reach as, just a buff you get when you get Vulture's Aid, and then have Condor's Reach be doubling that size of like the auto range of pickups. I think that would be a really cool buff to have to Vulture's Aid just in its entirety. All right, this is going to be a little bit of a hot topic. I know everyone loves depth perception. I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually, give this perk its due a little bit. It's nothing amazing. It's most likely not going to be something that you buy, one of your first, I'd say maybe 6 perks, but when you get it, it's a nice bonus to have. And the way that I have it built is for taking down elites faster. So with Death Stare, which is the major augment that I use, it doesn't say it here, but when they say low health with an elite enemy, they mean 20% or lower has a chance with the elemental damage to just kill it instantly. So, like, let's say that you're, shooting into a bullet sponge of a Zersa. If you have Death Perception and either Napalm Burst or I think it's Brain Rot, they have a chance to die once they're below that 20% margin immediately with any bullet. So it's really nice to have. Now, I am someone that likes to use the minimap, so for a minor perk, I like Bird's Eye View because it lets you have the information of just what's around you faster. I know it's not a big deal to some people, but that's what I like to use. Extra Change is nice, but I don't use it. And I also use Further Insight just because the other two are kind of eh. I mean, they're not bad. None of these are bad. I don't want to give the wrong impression like some people. I don't mind Depth Perception, and I think it has a place in the game. It's just that it's not a crazy perk. That's all. So really, with the minor perks, use what you like, but I use Bird's Eye View and Further Insight. All right, before we go into PhD, I also will have a small side note. If I sound really nasally, I woke up this morning and I'm under the weather. It's just unlucky, but we're gonna power through anyway. This is getting pretty long though. I didn't realize how much I'd have to actually talk, but hey, it is what it is. So with PhD, I love to use PhD slider. I know it's not nearly as strong as it was in Black Ops 6, but it's still nice to have that sliding distance and the speed. Oh wait, hold on. That's the minor augments. I get them confused because I'm thinking of Cold War. So I use PhD slider because I like the explosions. Sliding into an enemy, I know it already knocks them down, but just getting that confirmed kill or at bare minimum breaking the armor of an armored zombie, it's pretty useful. Now, on top of that, I use Tribologist for the increased speed and distance. I got the two mixed up again, I apologize. And then for my second minor, I use Environmentalist. I love this for fighting anything that has an area of effect attack. So like the Xerxes bees, if you're on the outside rim of, the like circle that they spawn in, you can just slide right past that. You take no damage. It's a good way to run away or just make distance if need be. So that's why I use that one as well. I will say that for people that build PhD to be just constant explosions, like whenever you land, you definitely would want to use Gravity MD. And then I know that Stuntman's pretty cool. And then is it EO? Yeah, EOD Technician. That's the ones that you would want to run probably then. But this is for sliding pretty much. And then obviously the base benefit of PhD is being immune to explosions. Moving on to Mule Kick, I like to use Pack Mule because getting it's I would say on average at least 100 extra rounds in reserve is just it's really nice. It extends that uptime of not having to buy ammo from crates and being more reliant on whatever weapon you're actively using. I think it's nice. And for minor augments, fully equipped since they fixed it. I will say there was a time where this didn't work and I was really bummed about that. But fully equipped is nice because it gives you the ability to hold 3 decoys instead of 2 and a bunch of other equipment as well. So that's just really nice to have. And then on top of that, Plate Hunter, because it gives you a 4th plate in reserve, which it doesn't seem like a lot on paper, but being able to have that extra damage mitigation, in a pinch, it's really helpful. Moving on to Deadshot Daiquiri. Now, I'm not sure if it's my favorite perk in the game, but it's definitely up there. I don't always buy it immediately, but it's just so nice to have. So the way that I build this is I use Dead Again. Now I know that it doesn't give ammo back as much as it did in Black Ops 6 because they gave it like a small cooldown, but for camo grinding, especially when you're focusing most of the time on headshots, just getting ammo back for all of those critical kills that you have to get, it's really helpful. And that's mostly what I do when I'm in zombies. I do play for, just having fun as well, but a lot of it is that camo grind aspect. So if that's what you are doing, definitely recommend this. On the other hand, while I don't run this, if Dead Again wasn't in the game, I would use Deadhead because that just gives you that extra bonus damage to headshots and it will just the damage will take you for longer with, higher rounds, if that makes any sense. Minor augments. I would say that, yeah, based off of the other augments, Dead Break is a must pick in minor augments because doing more damage to armor, even with the reduction of armored zombies in this game, it's still so nice to have. Being able to break through armor at a quicker rate is really important. It doesn't matter how many armored zombies there are. It's something you need to do. And on top of that, what I really like to use is Dead Draw. It was something that was in Black Ops Cold War, and I had to not run it in Black Ops 6, so I'm so glad that they added the ability to run 2 minor perks in this game, because having tighter hipfire spread is just, it's a really nice quality of life change to have. But with that, that's Deadshot. Okay, getting down the list here, folks. Moving on to Double Tap. I like to use Double Impact. I know a lot of people like to use Double Standard for shotguns and other weapons of that variety, But double impact is just the most consistent, in my opinion, because every other bullet doing more damage, it's a DPS increase. So that's that. Moving on to minor augments. It's a little bit different. I know that a lot of people like to use double time. I understand it's also just a flat DPS increase. I use double play. While it might be slightly bugged currently, just getting extra ammo, again, camo grinding, it's really nice because you have more ammo in every single magazine. And if they do fully fix it, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with like the activation rate and stuff like that, but if it does get buffed slash fixed, I think it's going to be even more fun to use. And then on top of that, double caliber. Now, my mindset with using double caliber is kind of the same thing with dead break. When you're firing into a horde of zombies with a regular bullet weapon, having that damage go through and, hitting more zombies reliably, it's just nice to have. It's a really nice quality of life feature, and it's something that I think once you do have both minor augments available on double tap, you should really give it. Getting close to the end here with perks, we have elemental pop. Again, I know there's many ways to build this, but I'm just going to focus on the way that I do. I like electric cherry. I really like to use camping methods for earlier rounds, so being able to have this activate whenever I reload, keeping zombies at bay while I'm, getting a fresh magazine in, it's nice. And I will say I'm not sure if it's bugged or they just nerfed it, intentionally. It doesn't really damage zombies that much. It does stun them for a decent amount of time, but it doesn't kill them, which it's kind of a give and take because you're allowed to get more kills and therefore more points because it doesn't just eliminate them immediately. Because it would probably give you like 90 essence, I think, if Elemental Pop killed it. So you get more agency to decide how to get your essence because of that change. Moving on to the minor augments for Elemental Pop, we have Vulnerabine, because again, I really build some of my perks for taking out elite enemies because they can be bullet sponges even at lower rounds. So this just doing extra damage, because the way that I play zombies, I always use the elemental weakness of whatever the elite enemy is on the map. So it pairs very well with this augment. On top of that, I use Chill Berry because you just get more random augment activations. And if you were using something like, let's say, what is it? It's Citrus Focus, you would then be getting more ammo mod activations of what you would like. So that's another way to build it as well. All right, last but not least, Wisp Tea. Without augments, this is kind of a meh perk, but you have a lot of options here, and I like to go with what I would call the living decoy build. You use the Mask of Distraction, which it can take away, like, I'd say maybe 20 zombies, just pull their aggro to wherever the mask is, and then pretty basic build. I use Extinction to make sure that it stays up for longer when it does activate, and then Haste to let it come back faster. Now, if you were doing Wisp Tea specifically for an Easter egg run, Zombie Sitter is very useful as well because it'll hold the last zombie until I think it's the round timer ends or whatever, so it's probably a solid 5 minutes, I'd say, if not more. I could be wrong about that, but it definitely is quite a long time that you can, be left alone and do Easter egg steps and whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Now on to ammo mods. Let's start with Dead Wire here. I like to use Lightning Strike. Now, I will say with this augment, it is a little bit wonky in BO7 specifically about like where zombies are when they get hit by the lightning, because sometimes even if they're definitely in that circumference of the strike, if they're like say down a flight of steps slightly, they don't get hit sometimes, which that used to not be a problem in Black Ops 6, so I'm not sure what exactly changed. It's still a very nice augment to run. And then again, pretty basic build. I use damage, the high voltage minor augment, and I'll explain in a second. And then on top of that, extinction. The reason I use those two and not say something like haste is when you are on a Ravager round, if you are using Deadwire with high voltage and extinction combined, most of the time the Ravagers will die without you even needing to shoot another bullet. Just Lightning Strike activates whatever is in that area of effect when it hits. They get, you know, stunned to death, pretty much. Napalm Burst, another really good, one of my favorites, actually, one of my favorite ammo mods. I use this for mobbing. That's the build that I have. Firebomb. This is really the secret sauce, I'd say, of Napalm Burst because it lets it spread way more because they burst, into an explosive flame whenever a zombie dies. I do think there's a cap on how many times this can happen per like a giant group of zombies, but it's still a lot of kills you get for free. Then to help with that, I do incendiary because it lets that effect spread even more while they're all burning, and then contact burn to increase the size of the area that, each activation has to set other zombies on fire. It's all focused on spreading the fire effect and making sure that everything in a clump dies. Moving on to Cryo Freeze, I know that a lot of people like to use Ice Cloud, but what I have this specifically set up for is Uber Klaus. So with that, I use Big Game because obviously without it, you wouldn't activate Cryo Freeze on any elite enemy. And then I use Extinction and Freezer Burn. I want to make sure that Cryo Freeze is lasting for as long as possible when it does activate on Uber Klaus, especially when he's in his big form with the shoulder pads that you have to shoot off. And then Freezer Burn for that little bit of, because you're going to be doing bonus elemental damage already, and then on top of that you do whatever this percentage increase is of extra damage to eat through that shield and get the shield generators off as soon as possible. So it's really nice. Trust me, this is a good augment combination if you just hate Uber Klauses. Believe me. Moving on to fireworks, I know that there are a ton of great combinations. I know I'm a broken record with that, but there really are for this ammo mod. I like to use Starburst because it allows you to, train zombies effectively. I think it's Weeping Willow as well, where it's just a big area of like a bunch of little fireworks, kind of like a different flavor of energy mine. But I like using Starburst because it has that area of effect, and it also still shoots out fireworks in different directions, so it can get you some pretty long range kills as well. But it's not targeted like the regular fireworks. That is one point that I will need to make there. And for minor augments, I know, bad segue, but it is what it is. I like to use Starlight because it sends out more fireworks, so it increases the duration, pretty much. And then I also like to use Short Fuse because if I have fireworks on a specific weapon, I want it to activate as much as possible. If it activates because of elemental pop, that's great, but if I am using it on purpose, I want it to have as much uptime as possible. And then I would say if it had a faster cooldown rate to begin with, I'd probably use High Yield because I'm guessing even with Starburst that it would maybe hit more enemies with each, explosion. So that'd be pretty nice to run as well, but Short Fuse and Starlight is what I have for the time being. I know that this can be defensive or offensive. I like to use another living decoy method. I like having zombies distracted without taking my kills. So I use Pheromone, you turn a zombie, it attracts, I'd say, probably at least 20, if not more, from whatever horde you're currently killing. And then, again, basic minor augments are Extinction and Haste just to make sure that it activates as much as possible and lasts for as long as it can as well. Moving on to Shadow Rift here. I like to use Gravity Well. It's kind of a different flavor of Explosive Rain, except that it can get more kills initially with how many that it actually sucks up into the Shadow Rift effect, at least in my experience. And for the minor augments to help with that effect, I use Haste to make sure it activates as much as possible, and then Supermassive. Now, at first, this augment did not work in tandem with Gravity Well, but they've since then fixed that. So you get, I'd say, maybe a bonus, maybe 3 to 5, not 5, probably 3 kills with every activation if the zombies are clumped up enough, which is really nice. Light Men, I feel like a lot of people don't give this ammo mod credit, or at least enough credit, with the booster shot especially. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words here. I can't help it. It always happens. But with this, it gives you a massive healing bonus, and then it also overheals you. And to make sure that that is even more consistent, I love to use the minor perks of mitosis because there is a chance, and it's a pretty frequent chance in my experience that you get two healing glyphs whenever it activates. And I know that maybe some people want to use longer life just to make sure that it can last as long as it possibly can. Maybe you're not damaged currently, but you walk away and you get hit a couple times, you come back, still there. I like to use Express Remedy because I find a lot of the times with the way that I play, if there is a horde and I get the Lightmen activation, most of the time I'm running the opposite direction. So the fact that it can go for longer and follow me as I'm, getting out of danger and it can heal me up and overcharge my health, it's great to have. Last but not least, for ammo mods, we have Shatter Blast. Now, because it was recently fixed, Blast Chain is definitely a crazy recommendation. The amount of kills that you can get within those like 4 consecutive blasts are very good. And to make that even stronger, the minor augments I would suggest are Blast Zone to make the explosions just that much bigger, and Blast Boost because that extra damage is really a cherry on top if you get, like, let's say, I don't know, even something like a Doppelgast, that's a good example. If they get hit by this, because you kill a zombie close to them, if they get hit by, let's say, even 3 out of the 4 explosions, that's a decent chunk of their health just gone. We are moving on to ammo mods, and another disclaimer here: I use Aether Shroud, I'd say 90% of the time. I know it is a very plain Jane thing to run, but it's just, in my opinion, the most reliable field upgrade. That does not mean that these other ones are not good. For example, Energy Mine. With Smart Mine equipped, it's not just going to activate as soon as one zombie gets near it. It waits for a big cluster to get close, and it activates, and it's devastation. For the minor augments, I personally like to run 2 charges if I do want to use Energy Mine, because just having that extra backup to get out of a bad situation, it's helpful. And I also like to run Siren, because it again, I love effects in zombies that distract a big group away from you so you can, do your own thing. Having those first few seconds of whenever you place an energy mine, all the attention is brought off of you pretty much. It's really nice to have. Moving on to Frenzied Guard. This is a pretty, I'd say, plain Jane build as well. I love Frenzied Fire. It's pretty much this game and Black Ops 6's equivalent of Ring of Fire, which is, I'm pretty sure, while they'll probably never bring that field upgrade back, but that's okay. At least it's an augment that we can kind of pseudo have Ring of Fire. And then for minor augments, the extension's pretty basic, just giving it more uptime. But the dual layer for giving your armor extra durability while this is active is actually kind of crazy, because it is a big increase, and as long as you are killing stuff, you will not die while you are in Frenzy Guard, especially with dual layer. Moving on to Tesla Storm, I will admit I don't have a bunch of experience with this one, at least in Black Ops 7. So this might not be the best build, but it is serviceable at least. I use Static Discharge because it can at least kill a few enemies around you whenever you activate it, and then I like to use Overclock because that movement speed bonus it's super fun to have. And then Lithium Charge, which is just another extension augment for the perk. It makes it last longer. So, I mean, I don't want to say that some of the minor augments are no-brainers, but with some of the perks and ammo mods and field upgrades, they do kind of have those certain ones that's like, yes, this is what I'm using, no questions about it. That's kind of where I'm going with. Moving on to Frost Blast. This is also a pretty simple build. I'm just trying to make Frost Blast as lethal as it can be. So I like to use Flash Freeze because anything that is in your general area when you first activate this gets frozen and it will die immediately. It's gone, except for obviously elite and special enemies, but still. And on top of that, for the minor augments, I like to use extinction because it makes the storm last longer, so you get more usage of it. And I, on top of that, like to use extra charge because I'm pretty sure they buffed extra charge to where on any field upgrade that has this augment, by the way, it makes it charge faster, like each individual one. And just having 2 field upgrades of anything is always a nice touch. Moving on to the camper's best friend, Toxic Growth, which I would use this if there was another way to also have Aether Shroud, but you know, that'd be kind of broken. I use Pollination because with this equipped, if you have Toxic Growth in a really good spot, you can pretty much just AFK for the amount of time that this is active because the slowing effect plus the explosions that happen every time a zombie dies by Toxic Growth, it horde clears. I'm not even kidding. Like you sit at the top of the steps in Astra Malorum on the left side of the map with the door closed behind you. This does, I'd say, 90% of the work. And for minor augments, we have Green Thumb because it's worded weirdly, but basically, Toxic Growth can only kill so many zombies before it breaks, they consider it health, so that makes it to where it can kill more zombies, and then extra charge because it's just better to have 2 Toxic Growths active, or maybe you want to hold on to one for an emergency. It is something that is good to have. Moving on to Healing Aura, or as I like to call it, the field upgrade that was the most broken for a long time because it just didn't work. I like Enduring Radiance because those, at least in theory, I have not used Healing Aura, I think, I want to say maybe for like at least 2 months, but hopefully it's fixed now. If anyone does still run this, it should heal you every few seconds. And then on top of that, for the minor augments, having things get stunned or knocked down around you is really nice. And Cornucopia should have a similar effect to, what is it, healing glyphs, where it will overcharge your health. So even if you get hit a bunch, your actual health isn't getting drained for the entire duration of Healing Aura, which is really nice. Moving on to Mr. Peaks, to be honest, I haven't really seen a lot of people use Mr. Peaks. I might just not be in the right corner of YouTube with what I watch for zombies content, but I still think that Arcane Fury is a really good build for Mr. Peaks if you're using him, to actually get kills. And then to go with that for minor augments, it's really basic. It's increasing his duration and it's increasing the area that he will attract zombies. So it's just nice to have. All right, and moving to the last bit of the video and last field upgrade as well, Aether Shroud, like I said earlier, my favorite field upgrade. There are 2 ways, well, more than 2, but 2 main ways you would run this if you're doing solo or if you're doing a group game. For group games, I just leave this on because I'm lazy. Group Shroud is crazy. The fact that it can conceal everyone in your squad for like a boss fight or something in a pretty large area as well, I will say, is top notch. And then very basic with the minor augments, but super effective. Extra charge because having 2 get out of jail free cards is amazing. And extinction, they're not lying. When they say it significantly increases the duration, it's like an extra maybe 5 to 10 seconds. It is really nice to have. All right, with all of those out of the way and Aether Shroud as our last one, that is all of my augment recommendations for Black Ops 7 Zombies. If this helps anyone with their builds as well, please let me know. If you guys have any recommendations for me as well, I would love to try out new builds because, that's part of the beauty of the augment system that we have is discovering really new powerful combinations, so that's really cool. And with all that said, as always, I know a little bit of a different video today, but have a good day, operators. See you next time.